Hit the shower. Grab your coffee. And get ready to attack the weekend with Charlie Usen and Jack Pembroke as they catch you up on everything Wisconsin sports you may have missed this past week. All before you even finish your breakfast. It's Wisconsin Sports Weekend, brought to you by the Apollo Cafe on Brady Street. 25 years of Greek tradition. Enjoy gyros, souvlaki, fresh salads, and the legendary Zeus burger. Dine in, take out, or get it delivered. Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
How we doing, folks? How are we doing? Like the big voice lady just said, this is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and served up by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. I'm Charlie Usen. That is new Bears fan over there, Mr. Jack Pembroke, since he's rocking a Bears shirt. That's the reason you're wearing it, right, Jack?
No, I lost a little bet.
Just a little bit?
Maybe like the Packers lost an 18-point first half lead.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it was painful.
Jack. Well, if you guys missed the last week's episode of Wisconsin Sports Weekend, Jack and I made a bet where if the Bears were to win this game, my favorite team, he has to wear a Bears jersey for the show. If the Packers were to have won this game, I had to wear this nice Packers sweatshirt that my grandma had gotten me, but it's still a Packers sweatshirt. I had already worn a Packers jersey once this season from when the Bears lost that first game of the year. So I think it's only fitting that you got to feel my pain, Jack.
You know, it felt like Freaky Friday. I felt like I'm a Bears fan. I know what it's like to be a Bears fan for so many years now, you know, just have a win and then just grasp it right into the jaws of defeat.
Yeah, it was a pretty wild way to lose that game for the Green Bay Packers. But what's new before the playoffs? People were talking about what could be the new crazy way the Packers blow this playoff run this time around. And it ended up being a pretty wild game. We'll dive a little bit into that in the second segment of the show here, along with what is the most glaring hole that you saw from the team in that game for the Green Bay Packers. What went wrong and who was most to blame for it. We're also going to dive into the rest of the NFL playoffs, give you some updates, talk about the games that are happening today, happening tomorrow. And then the college football championship is Monday night. So we wanted to dive into that a little bit at 9:40 as well. At 10 o'clock, our guy from Badger 24/7, Payne Blazevich, will join the show. He's going to break down a lot of the transfer portal moves that have happened for this Badgers football team, the losses, the additions, the guys that left for a little bit and then decided to come back again. We're also going to get into some Badger basketball as they've been on a hot streak lately, winning some really great games in the final seconds. It's been a lot of fun to watch that team. And then at 10:20, we have the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl. We are leaving a little early today, but do not fret. Only about 20 minutes. You only lose one segment of our beautiful faces and voices. So it's all right. Don't worry about it. We'll be okay. You'll be okay. We'll be on next week. We can talk about a Bears win next week too, Jack, right?
Oh, man.
No, we won't talk about a Bears win next week there. But we are going to start off talking about another team that has been pretty dismal, pretty sad to watch. The Milwaukee Bucks have lost their last two games in blowout fashion, and it's been pretty frustrating, leading to this discussion of more trade rumors. They quieted it for a little bit after Giannis came out last week, Jack, and said, you know, he's a Milwaukee Buck for the rest of his life. As long as they want him to be there, he is here. He will never ask for a trade, that he plans on finishing his career in Milwaukee. All great to hear. But now then that begs the question, what do the Milwaukee Bucks do next? Jack, in these last two games, where have been the biggest glaring holes you've seen for this Milwaukee Bucks team, especially versus a team like the San Antonio Spurs, where I think they kind of exemplify what the Bucks are so bad at?
Transition defense. After they get a bucket, it's like they're celebrating the fact that they've scored like a fifth grade AAU team, and they forget that, oh my God, there's a whole second, half to the court, and it's called defense. It's pretty abysmal right now. Let's not sugarcoat it. It does not look good. Great that Giannis says that he's a Buck for life, but what are they going to do to put the right people around him? It doesn't look like we can do much in terms of capital through draft. So we're going to have to make a trade. Who do you think we need to trade for, or what position?
I mean, I've said it before. I think the positions they need to look at are center, you need rebounding, and then defense. You need perimeter defense. So I'm thinking like a wing like that. Jack, you brought up the point that it doesn't feel like the pieces around him are fitting. Before the season, you and I both agreed pretty heavily that this felt like a team that was going to gel pretty well around Giannis. It felt like it was a perfect team that made Giannis the focal point of it, and then everybody else were going to be great supporting characters. What do you think hasn't happened, and who do you think is to blame the most for that, and why this group of players hasn't lived up to, I guess it wasn't a high bar of expectations, but they're still not getting there?
It doesn't seem like there's much of a team right now. It seems like there's somewhat of an ebb and flow where they put together one or two good games. It's very dark right now. It's like medieval times, dark ages for this Bucks squad. We talked about in the previous weeks that, hey, they had to start showing us something on this like West Coast turn. They did against the Hornets and the Kings. The loss to the Warriors. That's okay.
Hornets and Kings, great.
Yeah, I know. I know, Charlie. I'm trying to be positive. I'm trying to find some positivity in what is a dark time if you're a Bucks fan. The Nuggets, that's a close loss. That's not bad.
It was a game that they blew,
yeah.
If we're being completely honest. They very much had the opportunity to win that game and then didn't. And to your point, you brought up the pace of play earlier, and that's part of the reason they've been losing these games is they're playing teams that just are playing faster, quicker than them, which is also frustrating because I think that was the biggest issue last season when watching this Bucks team. And all they did this year when restructuring this team a little bit is they made the team younger. And when you make the team younger, you should, also get faster in most people's opinions. You should get more aggressive. You should be able to have better stamina throughout the course of these games. And it just doesn't feel like the Milwaukee Bucks have that. Do you think this is if they're not matching that pace of play that we expected, is that more of a Doc Rivers problem at this point in your mind, Jack? I know a lot of people have been calling for his job on social media over the past few days. Is this a situation where Doc Rivers is gone and the Bucks can figure it out all of a sudden, or is there more structurally with this that's the problem?
Charlie, I think that's a part of it, but I think structurally, I think it's systemic. It kind of comes from the players and the coaches when you're not performing with players that you should be. Ryan Rollins isn't all world, but he's a good guard, and KPJ is a good scoring guard. You should, and Kyle Kuzma has been playing pretty decently without Giannis. He's
definitely slowed down a little bit since Giannis came back.
Exactly. Which is kind of what I thought would happen because you're just going to give up different positional shots to Giannis now that he's back in the offense. It just, to me, I'm someone who looks back at the Bucks and what was successful when they made their championship run. Those guys like Drew Holiday. We don't have a guy who's specifically a pass first guard that can also play the other team's best player on defense the whole game. We don't have that ability. We've got scorers. We just don't have real 3-and-D guys and guys that used to come in and give us jolts of electricity are old now. Bobby Portis is old, and you might see flashes of games where he gives you above 20, but it to me, I hate to feel this way after a Packers loss, and I hate to bring dark clouds to our show on a nice Saturday after a nice snowstorm.
I think the weather did that itself.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like I'm getting very emo Irish right now, and I feel like we've got to blow up the team. I feel like we've got, and I'm not saying get rid of Giannis, but we've got to do something. This is not going to get it done. And we're going to be in this. I feel like we're watching the same movie. Like you said, you made a great point. A lot of similarities to issues last year that haven't been fixed. And I feel like we're just going to, we're going to be here next year with Giannis, and Giannis being like, what have you done for me lately? And this team is going to have some decent young athletes, but nothing more special than like an 8 or a 7 seed.
right. And I think that's where most people's eyes are set right now. That's like the goal at this moment is to get a 7 or 8 seed, which is not all that impressive. We are asking you here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. With Giannis, what would lead to another Bucks championship faster? So this isn't a scenario where Giannis is still on the team. He's not leaving. We're not trading him. He said that. Let's move past it. This is all now with plans of Giannis on the Milwaukee Bucks. With Giannis on this team, what would lead to another Bucks championship faster? Trading for a new second option, so getting another Damian Lillard. The options out there right now are like John Morant's been rumored to the Milwaukee Bucks, Anthony Davis, Zach LaVine has been rumored for like the past 3 months to the Milwaukee Bucks. Or trade everyone and go through a quick rebuild in order to try and get this team rejuvenated in a different way, restructure it. Maybe new GM, maybe new head coach at this point. If you needed to switch things up that way, we just saw Peter Feigin, president of the Bucks, leave this organization on. It says he's stepping down. We don't really know the behind the scenes of what happened there and what relationships may have broken down. But Josh Gleasing is in that role now. You saw him leave. What kind of structural changes to this organization can they do quickly in order to get them back to this championship caliber? Jack, you said blow it up and try to rebuild that way. If you're blowing it up, are you looking for young players that are in the NBA right now, or are you looking for draft picks in order to hedge your bets with more players? And in that case, again, is John Horst the best person to be making those draft picks if you're going to be going for those draft picks? This is, again, Wisconsin Sports Weekend. Hit us up on the Nicolay Law Talk and text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250, 1250, or at WI Sports Radio on Twitter and YouTube.
I'm going to say John Horst parallels very well to Brian Gutekunst. If you don't watch enough Bucks and you're just, a generic Bucks fan, he's made some very decent moves, not just through the draft, but through free agency. And then he's made some head scratching moves where you're just like, man, can we ever draft anyone that can do anything for Giannis? I think a lot of the issues right now, from what I see, are, and I hate to blame it all on coaching, but I feel like the Doc Rivers experiment is we're the dairy state, right? It's got a milk expiration date on the gallon here. I just don't think he lives very long until the end. Maybe he lasts the end of the season, but something's got to give.
Well, yeah, his jug has an expiration date on it, but the Bucks also threw out the last 2 jugs when they were half empty, when they still had a ton of milk left in them.
Exactly.
That was all perfectly good to go. So now you're screwed and you have to go through this milk because you can't buy another milk at this point. I mean, they kind of messed themselves up. And I think the best option, and we talked about this with Bill Reiter on Wisconsin Sports Daily on Thursday this past week. You can catch that show from 2 to 5 with Steve Sparky Pfeiffer and myself. But Bill Reiter of Reiter Than You, awesome podcast, go follow him on Substack, was saying that the best course of action for this Bucks team could potentially be keeping Doc Rivers through at least the end of this season, waiting until that buyout goes down a little bit, because you already had, again, exponential buyouts that just you're still paying people. Are frustrating to keep seeing and seeing that we're paying 2 other coaches right now. But the best course of action is to finish the season out with Doc Rivers and hope to get as low of a pick as possible. So a lot of people think the Bucks don't have a first round pick this year. They will have a first round pick. It's just after the Hawks pick which of the Pelicans or the Bucks pick they want. And then I think the Pelicans then get the second pick of, do I want the Bucks pick or the Hawks pick, if it whatever breaks out one of the last 2 picks, and then the Bucks get the last remaining pick. So they'll still have a first round pick. It could just be later on in the first round. What helps them out a little bit is that the Hawks aren't very good and the Pelicans aren't very good. So right now they're sitting in a spot where they could still potentially have a top 10 pick in this draft. Which you brought up the comparison to Brian Gutekunst, and I think this is another way that they compare. Neither of these 2 GMs have had a first round pick that's been early enough in the first round to truly make that big of an immediate impact.
That's very fair. What does when I want to kind of form what I mean by blowing it up.
Sure.
There's like two ways to blow it up. There's one way where you just don't play well, you don't make the playoffs, and you hope, like you said, through that scenario, you get maybe at best we get a 10 to 15 pick, right? And hopefully you have a GM, you have a program or a company that can assess talent and say, hey, this is a guy who will fit immediately into what we want to get done with Giannis and how we want to fare in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Or you do what I think they don't have the fortitude to do, minus a word I want to say on air, but I just don't think they have the cojones to do that, is you get rid of Kuzma, you get rid of maybe a Rollins, because I feel like KPJ and Rollins play similar positions. And you say, okay, Giannis, who right now can we go out and sign or trade for that? Like, look, Jonathan Kuminga is a good young guard who's more than once said he wants out of the Warriors. At some point, you're going to have to kick. Maybe it's the end of this year. You kick the can down the road and you say, hey, Warriors, what is it going to take for us to get him off your hands? And maybe that's a bad move because you don't bring in a guy like that who's bad chemistry, but he's a great player.
All he wants is to be like the second or first option on a team. So he's willing to go anywhere where that's an opportunity. And by God, the Bucks
would be
are
great.
A team where he could be a second option pretty fast if he plays well enough. I wanted to ask you, you brought up Ryan Rollins. And again, we are asking you folks at home, with Giannis, what would lead to another Bucks championship faster? Trading for a new second option or trade everyone and try for a quick rebuild? You can hit us up on the Nicolay Law Talk and text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250, 1250, or at WI Sports Radio on YouTube and Twitter, where we are live streaming currently. Jack, I wanted to ask you, you brought up trading Ryan Rollins potentially. A lot of Bucks fans, in my mind, are overvaluing Ryan Rollins at this point, especially on the trade market. One of the mock trades that has come up is for the Bucks to get Ja Morant, and for the Bucks to get Ja Morant, they're saying they would trade Ryan Rollins and the 2031 first round pick that's completely unprotected right now by the Milwaukee Bucks. And I look at that trade and I say, I'd be intrigued. Yeah, maybe I'd want to retool it a little bit, but I'm not saying no to that immediately. There's a lot of Bucks fans that are going, no, we can't do that. I think it's more because of the 2031 pick, but I think if you were to throw Kyle Kuzma in there instead of a Ryan Rollins, they would more likely be willing to do that trade. I don't really think right now, in my mind, Ryan Rollins and Kyle Kuzma are that far off from each other.
I don't think you're wrong in that. My only hesitation with Ja Morant is the nightlife in this city and Ja Morant would not mix. And I don't think he is as focused like Giannis is focused on winning. And that's what kind of I would hesitate on making a move for Ja Morant. Wouldn't that be
like then the perfect person to pair him with in that situation? If Ja Morant isn't that focused on winning at this point in his career, Giannis is like right now, the way he talks and the way he's been like speaking in his press conferences after these blowout losses, he really cares about winning. Probably cares about winning more than anybody else in the league. Now, he's being a little selfish when he's talking about that the past couple of times when he's also said, I want to win. He's also said, I need the ball more. He's also talked about how he's the leading scorer in Bucks history. You know, I think he's kind of got this mentality I think can flip Ja Morant over a little bit there. Let's head on over to the Nicolay Law Talk and text line again, 414-677-1250. You can be like my guy, Al in Cedarburg. Al, how you doing, my man?
I'm doing fabulous, Charlie. How are you guys doing today?
Doing pretty good. So we're talking about the Milwaukee Bucks here, Al. Which would you rather do? Which do you think would lead to a championship faster? Trading for a new second option like a Damian Lillard, Ja Morant style player, or go and trade everybody for picks or young players and go and quick rebuild?
So I'm going to go on the latter. And that really is because we've seen what Horst has tried to do the last, 3 times going down that path. And it hasn't worked out. And the only reason I'm not going to go and try to get another superstar for Giannis right now is because it's just screaming desperation. And I think everybody knows we're at a desperate point. But the faster path is basically rebuilding this whole thing. And, I look back on it, and what's really, really, really crippling, and it kind of hurts me to say because I was a fan of it when it happened, is the Miles Turner signing is probably going to go down as one of the worst acquisitions in John Horst's history. You really look back and you think about the financial repercussions that put the Bucks in, or that they had for the Bucks, were just monumental. And so if they can figure out a way to get rid of Turner as well, and I think you were right, Charlie, it's going to have to be Kuzma just because of the salaries. They won't match up if it's just Rollins on a first. So I think if you can dangle Kuz and that first and even Turner and just try to get some more cap off the books, that's going to be the faster path. So interested to hear what you guys have to say. Have a good rest of your morning. Stay safe, drive safe, and make sure you grab some Apollo later on.
Will do. Thanks for calling in, Al. Don't be a stranger. There he is, Al in Cedarburg. Be like Al. Get on the Nicolay Law Talking text line 414-677-1250, 414-677-1250, 1250 to get on with Jack and I. Can also get in at WS Sports Radio on YouTube and Twitter that way as well. Jack, if they go with this route of moving on from some of these bigger contracts that they've committed themselves to, and I wanted to ask Al this, but he had to get out of here a little bit quick there. How do you convince Giannis that that's the right move to go through the end of the season and just try to basically not be competitive, go and get players that he's going to have to carry for a majority of the year, even more so than he is right now? Giannis has come out and said he doesn't want to leave the Bucks unless he's kind of forced out by this team. I mean, that would frustrate me a lot if I'm Giannis and I've given this type of commitment to the organization, and now they're going, okay, now you have to wait even longer in order for us to compete again. So A, how do you get Giannis to buy into kind of that mentality for the rest of the season? And then B, how do you quickly turn it around next year in order to make sure he doesn't get even more mad?
Well, I think with what Al was saying, and I kind of like, I don't mind the Miles Turner and Kyle Kuzma. If you could swing that somehow this year, then I think Giannis isn't as ticked because you've gone out and probably made moves that have made this team better offensively and defensively. And that's kind of like your argument when you're coming to the table with Giannis and saying, Giannis, we've got to make these moves. Look at how bad our defense is. Look at how bad our transition D is. Look at how bad our rebounding, our offensive rebounding is. We need at least a calendar year to get guys around you that can make this work. And I think that's how, the spawn of two attorneys in me would show up to that and try and talk that person into that with a silver tongue. But you're right. You bring up great points. He is not a guy who will tank. That's not in his nature. So now you've got to convince a guy to kind of semi-tank, where that's one of the options is, hey, we're really going to coast the rest of the year after the All-Star break, and it's going to be ugly, but trust us, which you just brought up. Like, can you trust a horse in the draft for a pick we're not certain where we're going to land on a first-round pick? What would you do if we could make that Miles Turner and Kyle Kuzma trade this season?
Well, I think there's a lot of second tier players that are out on the trade market right now. Guys like, and I know a lot of people, a lot of NBA GMs are probably higher on guys like Herb Jones than I think some NBA fans are, but people that really are in on the NBA know how good of a defender Herb Jones is, know how good of a rebounder he can be from that wing position as well. I think there's players like that I'm going to go and try to attack. And again, give up a Miles Turner or a Kyle Kuzma more so because he's an expiring contract in that first round pick, and kind of figure it out that way as well. Again, I'm looking for more of those mid-tier players that you can still stay competitive with and kind of hedge your bets, I guess, a little bit more in order to keep Giannis around. Again, I think this is a guy that has gone through the rebuilds, the times of down years for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And yes, that was before Giannis was Giannis, but you still saw the end of that kind of era of that Bucks team. This is a guy that's closer to the end of his career than he is the beginning of his career at this point. He's a guy that's closer to decline than he is his prime at this point, especially with all the injuries that he's facing.
I was just going to say another injury would put him out for another year.
Right. I think just convincing him that, you know what, we're doing this for the future of the Bucks kind of tells him that you don't have him in mind still too, especially when he's made this commitment to you now, which I know a lot of people are trying to find ways to circumvent that and say, oh, well, he's just going to say his agents want him to be traded, all this other stuff.
I don't believe that. Yeah.
We spent so much time trusting the Bucks front office and all these reporters about all these rumors and getting mad at Giannis. For once, when Giannis finally says something, let's believe him for a while. Before we start slandering him again, because he is probably the greatest athlete to ever play in Milwaukee for the Bucks.
I mean,
if
did
we're
you
being
you
completely
ever
honest.
think you were gonna get to see a title
No
as
shot.
as a little kid in Brookfield?
No shot.
Little Charlie, Chicago
Not-
Charlie.
I was watching Carlos Delfino and Joel Prisbilla ball out on the court for like $15 tickets with my dad, man. Like that was it was not the best basketball to watch, but I fell in love with those teams. And
But
to
it was
see this
your
team-
Bucks
but
basketball.
it was my Bucks
Yeah.
basketball. Exactly. So I want to see this team still be able to compete. And I think trying to go into this kind of full shutdown mode where you trade all the veterans away for just young players or just draft capital and then trying to redo it all next year with new veterans just feels like, again, just as much of a gamble as trading for those second overall stars. So I'd rather just, again, try to retool what you've done already and find players that just fit better around Giannis and fill the holes that you know need to be filled at this point.
What scares me at the end of the day, Charlie, is I don't think they, like we've said in the past, I don't think they have the mental and physical toughness to say, okay, we can do this. We can go out and get one piece or two pieces by getting rid of one or two guys. I don't think they can do that mid-season. I don't think they'll do that. So we're literally going to be stuck in limbo of, okay, well, we're not going to tank because Giannis and in this city and our staff, that's not in us to do. Or okay, so now you're just kind of like hope we leak into the playoffs.
Yeah. That's
Okay,
exactly
well
what
let's get on that leak
That's-
bandwagon.
That's what it feels like right now. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. When we come back, we're going to dive into that Bears-Packers game a little bit and ask you where you thought the most glaring holes were for the Packers in a very disappointing loss. We will be right back. This one's kind of funky, Jack.
I love the funk.
This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend live with Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, right over there on historic Brady Street. Thank you all for tuning in. When we left to the break there, we were discussing the Milwaukee Bucks and whether or not going for a second star or starting a quick rebuild is the best option in order to get the Bucks a championship. If you want to get in on the show, you can get in by calling 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250, just like my guy Brian in McGuanago did. Brian, you are on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. How you doing today?
I have two quick things. Well, one real quick thing about the Bucks, it doesn't take much talking, is that, Einstein's thing is to keep doing the same thing and getting the same result, to keep back doing the same thing, then you're out of your mind. You're nuts.
Crazy.
Well, the Bucks, they do try to get another backup star with Giannis. You're just putting a Band-Aid on a pig. It's still a pig. and the thing is that I would rather, you could see that right now in the last maybe year and a half, is that Giannis is getting less tolerable to be in Milwaukee. It's not so much about Milwaukee itself. It's just he wants to win. Mm-hmm. And the guy gives it his all every night. But when you have one player that hasn't given his all day in and day out, game in and game out, with big guys, you're going to get knee problems. You're going to get strains, and this is what's happening in the last couple of years. So what's the sense for this injuries getting almost like Embiid-like to chase the dream? I trade them, but the mistake the Bucks really made is they got rid of their coach when they were like 20, 25 games over 500 to bring in Doc Rivers, which is probably the biggest fraud to ever coach an NBA team. When he won the Boston Celtics, they had Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and that's before where you could go recruiting around the NBA. That was in the early days of that.
Right.
So they were pretty solid, and they had great role players. But when you look at the Bucks roster real quick, is that Greeno scored 31 night, and he's got 1 point the next night with 5 fouls. Rollins will go 6 for 7 on threes, and the next game he'll go 1 for 13. They all want to be stars on a game when Giannis isn't in the lineup, and that deal was done when they signed Turner. That was a panic move if I've ever seen one. Now onto the Packers.
All right.
Which is, I think the only thing the state of Wisconsin really cares about besides the Brewers is that when you look at that secondary, that has got to be the number one. They have
100%.
some fraudsters back there, and I mean from Nate Hobbs to Happy Valentine all the way to Keyshawn Nixon. This guy will get burned for 2 touchdowns in a row, and then he'll deflect the pass, and he'll dance in the end zone for 5 minutes and get an unsportsmanlike conduct.
Nope.
The secondary is terrible. What they need on that defense that would make them a legit Houston, Denver-type defense, not so much a pass rusher, is they need a defensive stop in the tackle. Mm-hmm. They need a secondary lockdown corner. Everything else will take care of it, because when you got those guys one stud on every level, it just brings everybody else up a half to a level. And that makes a huge difference. When you put the pressure on the offense to score 25 points a game, that's not going to happen. Sometimes teams are well prepared. You're going to run into a great defense. And one thing about the NFL has been true for 60 years, defense travels, whether it's warm or cold. And I think that the Packers are right on the fringe, and they've got to take care of business right now when Love is entering his prime, Parsons is kind of in his prime, and they got a young defense. But, as we know, look at the Lions 2 years ago. They looked like they're going to win Super Bowls for the next 5 years, and they collapsed.
Exactly.
Real fast. It can happen so fast.
Exactly.
So when you're on the brink of stardom, you've got to get it right then. You can't chase dreams for 5 years. So I just think that whether free agency, some roster moves, with Gary and Jenkins alone, you're going to clear up about $35 million.
Well, and they may move on from other guys like Josh
Jacobs.
Yeah,
those are
they're
just two big ones off the top.
They're not going to pay Quay Walker, all these other contracts. Yep.
Correct. And those are just two big ones right off the top instead of going through the whole defense.
Right.
But the thing is that they're close. And I think firing LaFleur is a panic move. I think he could help have an offensive coordinator and have him go back to managing the game so he doesn't throw red flags on stupid things. And if you get a good offensive coordinator like a Stefanski or Mike McDaniel, I think that they're going to be okay. There's plenty of defensive coordinators out there, but they've got to agree to this contract with LaFleur, like within the next couple of days. because all these coaches out here are going to get hired in the next week, and they're going to get offensive coordinators and special teams guys and all the guys that we never even think about, the guys that actually put the game plan together in the films and the editing, and it's all part of the game plan. The coach gets all the credit when they win, but these guys are working hard behind the scenes, and I think stressing that lockdown corner and the defensive tackle will really make that defense just 100% better. And being healthy, of course.
For sure. Yeah, and being healthy has been the biggest thing these past couple of weeks. Brian, thank you so much for calling in, my man. Don't be a stranger.
Yeah. Thanks.
There he is, Brian McGuanago on the Nicolay Law Talking text line 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250, And he introduced our next question that we had for you guys here. Where was the most glaring hole or the biggest glaring hole on the Packers roster after the loss to the Bears this past weekend? And who would you get to fill those holes? So, Jack, he brought up on the defensive side of things, the two biggest spots that I think a lot of people have been looking at, the cornerback position and the defensive tackle position in that game. The run defense, especially towards in the second half, was starting to break down a little bit. And then the pass defense, you just saw them have to rely on this cover 2, cover 3 style zone defense that the Bears were picking apart, especially later on when Caleb Williams was able to get out of the pocket and out of structure a little bit more. With that cornerback position specifically, Trevon Diggs was signed to come in and potentially help this team. He played one snap and got ran over in that one snap by his own teammate after they gave up a screen pass, a bubble screen. And then he didn't play the rest of the game. Like Brian mentioned there, Keyshawn Nixon had a couple really bad plays, especially later on in the game when DeAndre Swift scored his red zone touchdown. And Keyshawn Nixon olayed him, sidestepped him, just
Matador D.
made a business decision. Yeah. Carrington Valentine had a couple, unsavory plays in this game. And then you're relying on your two safeties to kind of figure everything out. And Everett Williams did really well in the run game. But again, just they feel like they're almost non-factors in the pass game at this point because teams are just able to pick them apart below the safety position and don't even test the other team or the Packers safety group. So in a situation like this, what would you grade the Packers defensive back room at the end of this season? And then how would you go about rearranging? Is this something that's more free agency driven or draft driven at this point?
Oh, those are great questions. And Brian had a ton of info that was just so good from just a listener. Look, we knew going into this season, one of the biggest questions other than offensive line was the DB room. You can't start seasons like that. You can't end seasons like that. We were Kleenex soft in the secondary all year, other than maybe some Javon Bullard and Xavier McKinney. That was about
Evan Williams turning the ball over earlier on in the season.
Yeah, and that was about it. He's right. We're close. We're maybe two pieces on defense from being a very good, healthy top 4 defense in the NFC. And you and I forever have been saying Wyatt is so important to this defense. Wyatt and Micah Parsons covered a levee of sins in this secondary because we were able to get to the quarterback early and often. I mean, look at the difference without Micah and Wyatt out. The defense was given up 16 and then went to 32. So we're maybe, like you said, you need another edge rusher because Rashawn Gary is going to live on a milk carton for the rest of his life as a Green Bay Packer and get paid to do it. Like. I think you got to let go of Quay. So you're going to have to, and this is what Goot claims he's good at, is you're going to have to go from the 2nd and 4th round and get a DB in the 2nd or 3rd. You're going to have to go get a guy who can be a 3-point stance guy on the edge there to give a Lucas Van Ness, a Micah Parsons, a Devon Wyatt, the ability to go after one-on-ones against the offensive line. And that's going to improve whoever you put back in the bottom 4 of that secondary. They're going to made to look like all pro guys. Like you said, a lot of those boats are going to rise, but you made a good point. You can't win games with guys like Keyshawn Nixon making business decisions and pretending they're Spaniard, matadors out there playing defense with a red cape. And Valentine, there's days you really do like some of the stuff you see on film. And then there's days where it's like, oh my God, he is a liability and we get exposed. The best way that I see this secondary getting better is that front 4. You get another guy with Devon Wyatt and you get another edge rusher, because you're going to have guys healthy back. And as long as you can get to the quarterback, you can coach secondaries up. You already have Xavier McKinney and Javon Bullard. And then somewhere in that 3rd or 4th round, you're going to have to go get a guy who can tackle in the flat and one-on-one man cover, because those are the holes in this defense. You've got to be able to man-on-man cover, and you've got to be able to press and tackle in the open field. And we didn't have that consistently.
He is Jack Pembroke. I am Charlie Houston. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. When we come back here, we'll dive into the offense, talk about a player or two or position or two on that side of the ball that may need an upgrade this offseason. Don't change that dial. We will be right back. Welcome back into Wisconsin Sports Weekend. I'm Charlie's, and that's Jack Pembroke. We are live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Streets. Hello to all you in Green Bay and Appleton on 99.7 FM and 1440 AM. Hello to everybody in 93.9 The Game in Wausau, over there at 710 The Game in Duluth and Superior, and as always, our friends here in Milwaukee and 1250 AM and 1057 FM The Fan. We love having you guys all here on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. Feel free to call in anytime you want here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend. We are always live and ready to go for you guys. 414-677-1250. Again, 414-677-1250 to get on the Nicolay Law Talk and Text line. And then at WI Sports Radio, get in on the YouTube stream or Twitter stream, wherever we are live on there. We also are just on social media. So if you just like cool stuff, cool posts, we're posting stuff on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram all the time. So check us out again at WI Sports Radio. We got about 3 minutes here, Jack. Real quick, if we had to head over to the offensive side of the ball, what aspect of that game disappointed you the most, especially after an awesome first half and then kind of a weird second half?
Rapid fire. Obviously, you lose Tucker Kraft early in the season. He's still a top 5 tight end in the league, even though he played 7 weeks.
Well, I mean, first half of the game, specifically just in the game.
First half of the Bears game. The fact that after the first half they weren't able to get more than 1 yard rushing. I think that's obviously a little bit of your offensive line, but mainly Josh Jacobs. You got to do better. You're paid to do better, and usually you are a better running back. So
usually he's a better running back. Yes. Again, I think the offensive line, especially once you lost Sean Ryan to that knee injury, I know that was later on in the game, but that was frustrating. But the wide receivers who had performed so awesome in the first half of the game, in the clutch moments of this one,
drops,
we're dropping the balls like we were complaining about last season. Jaden Reed, Christian Watson. And then you saw some great moments from guys like Matthew Golden and Romeo Dobbs had that phenomenal catch down the right sideline that you thought would have been the dagger if Christian Watson had caught that next one up the middle. But in the pass game, what do you think went wrong with this Packers team when it comes to playing in the clutch throughout the season? So now I'm talking about throughout the season and in this game. Just seemed like they weren't able to close out the games the same way they started games.
They don't have the killer instinct yet. And I think it's from their head coach. He's got a history, whether he was with Atlanta in the 28-3 debacle in a Super Bowl. And you've got to start calling it out. We did the week before when the caller said, hey, why aren't they able to score in the second half? And I said, I don't think they have a coach who's great offensively play calling after a Ben Johnson or someone else has kind of figured out, okay, this is what they want to do. And now you have to retaliate. I don't think we have that. So I think you're going to have to bring in, like Brian said, an offensive coordinator that can call second half plays. I think you got to have better catching from wide receivers. It's just simple things that are so frustrating, Charlie.
Is there an offensive coordinator you have in mind? I know a lot of people have talked about like Mike McDaniels, who got fired by the Miami
He's popular,
Dolphins.
and I know he's got a history with the coaching tree that is LaFleur's coaching tree. That you got to bring someone he's comfortable with, that he wants to pay, and that he thinks can call plays in the second half for him, because that's ultimately it's going to come down to is, can LaFleur play with him?
For sure. He is Jack Pembroke. I am Charlie Houston. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Do not go anywhere. When we come back in the second hour here of Wisconsin Sports Weekend, Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7 joins the show to break down all the awesome roster moves the Badgers have made. And we'll also dive into some great basketball by the Wisconsin Badgers over the past couple of games to win some close ones against Big Ten opponents. Again, I'm Charlie Houston. That is Jack Pembroke. We will be right back.
Hit the shower. Grab your coffee. And get ready to attack the weekend with Charlie Usen and Jack Pembroke as they catch you up on everything Wisconsin sports you may have missed this past week. All before you even finish your breakfast. It's Wisconsin Sports Weekend, brought to you by the Apollo Cafe on Brady Street. 25 years of Greek tradition. Enjoy gyros, souvlaki, fresh salads, and the legendary Zeus burger. Dine in, take out, or get it delivered. Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, on the Wisconsin Sports Radio Network.
How we doing, folks? How we doing? I am Charlie Houston, like the big voice lady just said. Got my guy Jack Pembroke on the other side of the glass there. And we are Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by the Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. This is the second hour of Wisconsin Sports Weekend. If you missed any of the first, stay tuned to wisportsradio.com for the full podcast posted after this. Or if you're watching us at WI Sports Radio on YouTube or X, you can rewind the show back that way and watch us that way as well. We talked some Bucks and Packers in the first hour. They're pretty depressing right now, Jack. For the first time in a long time, it feels like Badger football is like what's actually making people happy. It feels like a really long time. So I wanted to bring in my guy, Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7. You can follow them at Badger 24/7, and you can follow him at Payne Blazevich, both on Twitter there that way. Payne, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing really good, guys. Thank you again for having me on. Great morning. We got some basketball tipping off in a couple of hours, nonstop portal action. So it's a busy time over here.
100%. And it's been a pretty fun, busy time. A lot more active, especially in the bigger name recruits for this Wisconsin Badgers team. One guy that I'm really excited about, I know a lot of people are really excited about, it's the biggest name that's been in this transfer portal for this Badgers team, but Colton Joseph at quarterback out of Old Dominion. It seems like a dual threat guy, the first one that we've had in a really long time for this Badgers team. How much of a difference do you think he's made in everybody else hitting the transfer portal for the Wisconsin Badgers coming into the team in this class? How much of that is because of Colton Joseph making that commitment too already?
Yeah, it's such an important thing to get your quarterback locked in early. And when it's a guy that has the profile that Colton Joseph does, it can kind of create this rallying point for this class. So Colton Joseph, redshirt junior, going to be a guy that has years of experience and a couple of years still to play. Extremely productive, over 2,000 yards, 21 touchdowns throwing, 1,000-yard rusher, and 13 touchdowns on the ground. So he's a guy that can kind of command that production, and he's someone that wide receivers, running backs, offensive linemen, they're guys that offensive players want to play with because he can make plays, but he can also open up the field, hit his receivers, and then, create that extra threat to kind of open up the run game too. So it makes a significant difference having a guy like that locked in as early as he was in this transfer portal cycle.
So, Payne, I went to high school in the Northern Virginia area, but Virginia, Old Dominion is very similar to how JMU came up more recently, is they just were able to get really good athletes and develop them. Can you look me through the glass and tell me that it's finally going to work for the Badgers on pulling a quarterback from the portal this time? Is it going to happen this time?
I wish I could. And I think you asked me that last spring.
Yeah.
So I can't tell you, but I will say that the tape speaks for itself with Colton Joseph, just in terms of production. And some of his biggest plays have come against this Power 4 competition. He had an explosive long touchdown run against Indiana to open up their season. He had a fantastic showing against Virginia Tech. He's put some of his best games on tape against Power 4 competition. So you got to hope that can translate. But, like we've said over these past couple of years, injuries are going to play a big part. He's a running guy, so he's, just naturally going to subject himself to more of those hits, more of that wear and tear. So I wish I could tell you that this is the guy for sure, certainly, but I don't see any reason to not have confidence in what he can bring to this offense, just in terms of his dynamic playmaking ability. It's such a difference from what Wisconsin has had in the past.
So more of a promising prospect at quarterback than recent ones.
Yeah, I'd say so.
That's what it feels like a little bit. So they brought in Deuce Adams as well, another quarterback, a 3-star portal guy in this class. And then Carter Smith also chooses to stay with the Badgers this offseason as well, which was a little surprising to me. Felt like when you were going to be so heavy in the portal for quarterbacks, bringing in 2 of them, that a guy like that who got starting time as a true freshman would maybe try to look for opportunities elsewhere where he could keep playing. Why does he make that decision, A, to stay with Wisconsin, and then B, is there still going to be some kind of QB competition, or is this just Colton Joseph's job to lose?
Yeah, so I would expect heading into the spring that Colton Joseph is probably set to be the QB1, but there's no reason to not at least expect competition. And I would say it's probably in Carter Smith's best interest to stay here, compete for a job, and get as much experience as possible. I mean, he just finished up his first season, his first real year of work, of prep. You know, I don't think he was expecting to see the field in those final 4 games, but he showed some positives, but he also showed some areas of growth. So having a guy like Colton Joseph that he can really learn from, sort of plays a similar style in terms of the dual threat. I think it's a benefit for everybody. And Wisconsin, as we've seen in years past, needs quarterbacks. They need capable guys in that room. And I think it's just mutually beneficial to have Carter Smith stick around and learn from a guy like Colton Joseph, who's been so productive at the college level.
For sure. Talking with Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7 here on Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network studios. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke over there. You can follow Payne on Twitter at Payne Blazevich and at Badger 24/7 for all the new Badger news that's coming out that way from all the amazing writers that they have on that staff over there, including our guy Payne here. Still looking at this transfer portal here, one of the other top players that they got, the top player in their transfer portal class, Abu Sama, comes in to help that run game. They also bring in 2 other pretty big name running backs in that class here as well. The offensive line loses a little bit with Joe Brunner going to Indiana in that sense, but still should be a pretty strong unit where you saw a lot of young players get opportunities last season. How do you expect the run game to kind of step back into that traditional Wisconsin approach, or are these more players that you think are suited in kind of that West Coast style with the pass game and sneaking out that way? Do you feel like this is more traditional, going back to the basics, what Badgers do, or are these guys more dual threat players as well?
Yeah, no, I would expect Wisconsin's running game to be trending towards that more traditional ground and pound with new offensive line coach Eric Mateos. You got plenty of new offensive linemen through the portal. I think it's 4 here that I'm counting. And then obviously a couple of those returners that we expect to be in a starting role. But where this unit's going to excel is with that slower pace, more physical rushing attack. And then Abu Sama, I covered him for 2 years at Iowa State, and he's as explosive as they come, especially in the open field. He's a guy that's a game breaker, can absolutely take over games. He's had multiple games of 100 rushing yards or more, but he's not really a guy that you're going to expect to excel in the receiving game. He's not an elite pass blocker by any means, but he's a guy that get the ball in his hands. Once he can make a move at the line and get into space, he can explode. So I think with Colton Joseph, you have that extra threat on the ground, but Wisconsin, like they did last year, is going to try and move the ball on the ground as best they can. And you got to hope that the offensive line play is going to tune up a little bit. Got to hope you can break some more big plays with those running backs. But I think the expectation going into the year is that Wisconsin's going to try and push the ball on the ground.
What do you think has been Luke Fickell's message to a lot of these recruits that have come in through the transfer portal? I mean, you may know exactly what that message is yourself. You're covering the team here along with that. But what has gotten these guys to buy in more so than we've seen last year? Is it just straight up they've gotten more money and that's what we're dealing with? Or is there something that Luke Fickell is selling that he hasn't for the past few seasons?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think it's one, you can come in and compete for a starting job right away. We have so many positions that we need to fill. We have 22 outgoing transfers, and we need guys that can play because there are some areas that need to be tuned up and upgraded from last year that just weren't cutting it. So there's plenty of opportunity for competition. Guys can come in and compete for starting jobs. I think that's one. And then I think the second thing, like you mentioned, is the financial investment. It is increasing. It is at a much greater degree than it was last season. Wisconsin's competing with some of these top programs for these players. I mean, cornerback Bryce West, they plucked him out of Ohio State. I'm sure we can get to him later, but Wisconsin is showing that investment that they're going to get starting caliber players to play for time on the field. I think that's one of the things that has made the biggest difference, especially just with the volume of transfer commits that they've had. It's the playing time, and I think it's the investment that's made the biggest difference.
So Payne, you brought up, we did bring up the quarterbacks, and that we've made some moves on the defensive end that our guys are going to start immediately. The wide receivers that we've gone out and signed, are those guys that are going to start right away for this team?
Yeah, I think wide receiver is my biggest question out of this portal class. You could essentially count it as a portal win that you got Eugene Hilton out of the transfer portal and back on the roster. Yeah. He's a guy that I think can come back and compete for a starting job right away. We watched him all spring, all fall, and he was as explosive as it comes. Still has some areas to improve just in terms of his physicality, kind of competing at the college level. But like from those play-to-play bases, you could see him just bringing in these one-handed grabs, these incredible catches. So he's a guy that I think can play right away. But there are multiple guys like Jalen Domingo, Shamir Rigby, Malachi Coleman's a guy that I think can play right away. So there are players that I think will have an opportunity to compete for a role in that rotation. But I would say that's the one position that you really don't have any slam dunk, big time portal ads. These are guys that need to develop, but if the staff can hit on them, they can certainly be playmakers there.
I wanted to move over to the defensive side of the football for a little bit here. The defensive line, they got Hammond Russell the fourth here. He's a guy that can kind of fit in there as one of the bigger bodies that you're looking for, but they also haven't gotten too many recruits compared to other positions on this team in that group, especially compared to the cornerback room as well, where you've added a lot of talent over on that side of the ball. Is this something that you expect them to be able to kind of add more from some of these mid-major D2 level schools like we've seen them do here more recently over the past couple of days? Or is that group just kind of going to be what it is for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think the staff can evaluate maybe one or two more players, but I think they're pretty set in what they have right now. They just had a late night ad last night with DeNigel Cooper from Appalachian State, and he's a guy that I think can be at least a member of the rotation in that 2 deep. But I think the quality of player that they've brought in is pretty significant. I think each one of these guys that they've added can compete for a spot in the rotation. The guy that I would point to, honestly, is Jake Anderson from Illinois State. He just coming off competing for an FCS championship. He's highly productive, 52 tackles, 7 half tackles for loss last season. He's one of those, I think, maybe underrated guys in this portal class that can come in and be a plug and play type of player for the defensive front. And we're seeing sort of like it was last year, they're looking to the transfer portal to kind of inject some talent into that room, but they'll also depend on some of their returners. So at least with these, 4 guys that they have coming in here on the defensive line, I think each one of them can potentially have a chance to see time on the field.
For sure. Talking with Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. You can follow Payne on Twitter at Payne Blazevich. I did want to hop over to the basketball side of things real quick here. They're on a 3-game win streak. They played really tough against number 2 Purdue until kind of the end of the game there. Just got away from them a little bit. But in these past 2 games, you've seen John Blackwell be this type of leader that I think a lot of people were hoping he would be for a majority of the beginning of that season. It was just kind of on and off, but now he's more consistently doing that. Seeing Nick Boyd kind of step into that second player role now, and you're also seeing a lot of these bigger guys hit their threes as well, especially these young players. This kind of feels like it's starting to get into that same rhythm that we saw last year from this team. Do you feel that same kind of energy flowing here? Or do you still feel like there's going to be some inconsistencies like we saw earlier on in the season that they're going to have to fight through here?
Yeah, no, it feels like this group's hitting their stride. And when we look to the beginning of the season to now, there really has been a pretty straight line in terms of progression in this group kind of coming together. It's kind of hard to see that when you're in the storm of some of those losses to BYU, Nebraska, the Villanova loss, but looking from the start of the year to now, just over a couple of months, this group has really started to gel. They found their shooting touch from the 3-point line. They're playing a little bit more in rhythm. Some of those offensive spurts you really haven't seen to as high of a degree. And when the competition's been at its best, Wisconsin's been able to kind of match that. Like you said, at number 2 Michigan, Minnesota, who I think brought a really tough game there on the road. Wisconsin got punched early, regrouped, and then found a way to pull out a tough win. So, I can't say for sure whether they're done with some of those more puzzling performances. This will be a good test here. Rutgers at the Kohl Center later this afternoon. But in terms of like the very top end that this team can be, I think we still have yet to see that. I think they'll continue to grow, continue to gel, and come March, I'm really curious to see where this team is at and see if they'll still be firing on all cylinders like it appears they are right now.
I think they're getting healthy at the right time, Payne. The only thing of years of watching March Madness that scares me is if they don't have a great performance from beyond the arc. I want to see, can this team, and maybe they prove it to me in the next couple of weeks, is this team, do they have the ability to be physical with like an Iowa State or teams that can beat you up from the inside and out rebound you and then outshoot you? But I'm pleasantly pleased with how they've been performing and how their trajectory is going into March. I think we might eke into the Sweet 16 if we play this way.
Yeah, I can't say whether or not this group is completely immune to like hitting a cold streak in the tournament and getting knocked out, but when I've said since the beginning of the year, I think when they're playing at their best, when they're playing at their most cohesive, this team plays so quick, and I think they can hang with anybody. Now, the mission here for the rest of the season is how often can you get to that mark? How often can you find that rhythm? But, it's going to be such an interesting end to the year because they still have Illinois, go on a road trip to Indiana, still have Purdue, both at home and on the road.
Yeah.
So it'll be fascinating. I think this team has been really fun to cover. They're incredibly interesting, so many new faces, and I think we've finally seen them start to come together.
I got one more for you, Payne. So as we get into the second half of the season here for this Wisconsin Badgers team, again, John Blackwell kind of seems like that main guy. Nick Boyd is that number 2 at this point. Who's that X factor kind of third player that you're looking at here that's going to be probably one of the more important pieces as they get into this final stretch here and then into the tournament?
Yeah, I don't think my answer would have been this at the start of the year, but I think it's Braden Carrington. He's played excellent over these past 2 games, has been phenomenal from the 3-point line. He's been so good to the point that I don't even think you can expect it to that level moving forward.
Yeah.
But I think we should at least expect him to be a consistent guy to come in off the bench, hit a couple of big threes, but his rebounding has been phenomenal. His defense has been very strong too. He's one of those guys that can make a difference on both ends of the floor and just inject some energy onto the court. And, if he's someone that can get hot, especially come tournament time, I think he can be such a difference maker for this team.
He is Payne Blazevich of Badger 24/7. Go check out all of his phenomenal work over there. You can follow him on Twitter at Payne Blazevich, and you can follow Badger 24/7 at Badger 24/7 on Twitter, or usually most social medias, wherever you can find them. Payne, thank you so much for joining us today, my man. We will get you on soon, talk about some March Madness when it gets a little closer there.
Always appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Have a great rest of your Saturday.
Thanks, Payne.
You as well, Payne. There he is, Payne Blazevich, again, of Badger 24/7. Awesome dude. Follow him at Payne Blazevich. Always a pleasure to have him on the show here with Jack and I. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. We are going to jump the gun a little bit early. We got to get out a little early today. So we're going to head right into the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl coming up next year, where Jack and I go back and forth, share some of the biggest topics we saw in sports this past week. We will be right back. Yeah, that's good. That works, I guess. But it's just
That's okay.
It's not right.
Oh, there we are.
There we go. This is Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook. I'm Charlie Houston. That is Jack, the Wisconsin Warlock Pembroke, over there on the other side of the glass. And we are presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Usually right about now, we're getting into Warlocks Locks, but we got to dive a little bit earlier than normal into the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl. But Jack, I still wanted you to have your crystal cheese ball predictions, let you have the little bit of magic that you so often
You're so
create.
nice.
Jack, what do you got in your magic cheese ball?
Okay,
prediction?
quick parlay today. We are gonna go. I love the Texans D. I just think the Pats get it done in New England. So let's go straight up New England over Houston. And then let's go a little bit of a crystal cheese ball poll. Buffalo Bills over Denver. I'm not a Bo lever.
You're a ball hater.
I'm a behater. And then on top of that, let's top that off with one receiving touchdown for the snow bunny that is Christian McCaffrey.
All right, I like that. I think that's a fair assessment. A receiving touchdown for Christian McCaffrey is bold over a rushing touchdown.
I think he's getting that too, but let's go
Oh,
receiving.
you think
Let's go
he's doubling
receiving.
up? Just throw it on the parlay.
No,
and say one of each.
it won't happen. It won't happen.
You're whim. There you have it. That is Wisconsin Warlocks picks there over there on his little cheese ball parlay. We are going to dive into the Wisconsin Sports Weekend pub crawl now, though. If you guys are brand new to Wisconsin Sports Weekend, do not fret. I will explain to you what the pub crawl is. Jack and I go back and forth. We share some topics that we've seen across the sports world. Could be Wisconsin sports related. Could be world sports related. Could be semi-sports related. Sometimes Jack likes to get into science because he's just a scientific guy.
Weird
over
science.
there. But again, we just go back and forth, share some of our top stories that we found from across the sports world. I will get us started off. I wanted to head over to the world of baseball for a little bit. We haven't been able to talk about the world of baseball as much as I think I'd like over the past couple weeks. The Milwaukee Brewers have not made too many splash moves, anything that has seemed like it's worthwhile. They made a trade for Angel Zerpa. I just nailed his last name.
Yeah, that great pronunciation.
I listened to Tom and Tim Allen on the Hot Stove Weekly Show Wednesday nights from 5 to 7 since the legend, the franchise, Tim Allen is back with Tommy Wirtz over there. They were discussing the name. But the Los Angeles Dodgers, of course, have to sneak their way into every single conversation known to man when it comes to free agents. And superstar Kyle Tucker, outfielder who was formerly on the Chicago Cubs and Houston Astros, has made the decision to sign with the Los Angeles Dodgers for an average about $60 million per year, a $240 million 4-year contract. On the other coast, over with the New York Mets, who are also so much fun to watch since they get to sign everybody too, Bo Bichette signs over there for a 3-year, $124 million deal. Jack, what were you surprised that these two teams ended up with the top two free agents? I know this happens every year, but it felt like some other teams were in on the mix.
There was a little bit more parity of teams that were reaching out to people, but I just think it's the rich get richer, right?
Every time. Jack, what do you got first over there?
So I know he's not our quarterback anymore, but I love to always be like ESPN and do the whole Brett Favre, will he or won't he? So we're going to do it with Aaron Rodgers. Will Aaron Rodgers re-sign, come back with the Steelers, or try and get in early with another team? Or will he, what I think he'll do, Charlie, and you can answer if I'm wrong or not, I think he retires but sits out and then waits, kind of pulls a Joe Flacco where a team gets injured and has to bring him on that has a good defense and can get to maybe a title run. And I think he circumnavigates and pulls off the Brett Favre trilogy, and he becomes a Viking.
I mean, you might as well just be a Viking in the first place.
I know, right?
Though, right? I feel like you get more guaranteed money in that spot. And JJ McCarthy is already injury prone, hasn't really been able to stay in. I'd take that gamble right away from the beginning of the season. I just don't think he wants that. I don't think he wants to complete the Brett Favre trilogy. He doesn't want to continue to be walking in the footsteps of that guy. With the Steelers, I think the only way he was going to play one more year, in my opinion, was if Mike Tomlin was still head coach.
Yeah.
And now that Mike Tomlin has stepped down from the Pittsburgh Steelers, I just think Aaron Rodgers is done.
There's no room for him there.
He's the type of guy that I think if he were to retire, he's retired. I think he's kind of done. He's going to go live his own life. Now, he's probably going to pop up on TV shows every once in a while because he just can't stay away from it.
Just can't keep away from the Peruvian rainforest, you know.
He also can't stay away from the Peruvian rainforest. So I think he'll probably, if he retires, I think he'll be done, and I'm guessing he'll probably retire. Seeing the way he was talking, the reports of coming out of Pittsburgh's locker room of how he was like bawling and saying, "I'm sorry, Mike Tomlin left," it all kind of leans towards he's done. And that this is probably the last season, which if it is a legend of the game, really, like one of the greatest players I've ever watched, a guy that I love to hate because he was so amazing.
You knew he could throw a 70-yard Hail Mary, and it was about to be magic.
Exactly. Up next on my side of the pub crawl over here, we're going to head over to the world of college basketball. We were talking about the Wisconsin Badgers, and the Wisconsin Badgers are semi-connected to this case, not in an ultra bad
loosely.
But over on the college sports sides of things, a massive investigation was done by the FBI on 20 men have been charged in a point-shaving scheme involving more than 39 college basketball players and more than 17 NCAA Division I teams, most of the mid-major schools. The way that the Badgers are kind of connected to this is Elijah Gray, a player that they had gotten through the transfer portal. I believe it was from Fordham University. All of a sudden, just before the season, decided that he wasn't going to be coming to Wisconsin, or the Badgers decided he wasn't going to be coming to Wisconsin. Nobody really knew why. It was just kind of this decommitment that came out of nowhere. Well, Elijah Gray has been named in the account here as one of the 39 players that have been investigated in this whole thing. From pages 20 to 22, former Ram Elijah Gray received a payment between $10,000 to $15,000 to underperform in Fordham's home game against Duquesne. That's
Duquesne, beautifully.
Duquesne. I nailed it. On February 23rd, 2024, a game that was televised on ESPN2. Kind of insane that they were able to go about this on such a kind of a large scale. I know these mid-major schools aren't exactly the top tier universities and people aren't keeping as close of an eye on them, but there's players on these teams that are getting NIL payments. There's players on these teams that are going to big schools that there's some of these teams are going to be in the NCAA tournament. I mean, there's a lot going on here that kind of feels weird that it is just now getting brought to light.
And you can affect, especially college basketball. My dad always used to tell me, if you ever want to lose your money, bet on NBA or college basketball.
It's the easiest sport to cheat in, I think, too. Well, baseball, I think, is pretty easy. If you just don't swing the bat, you're good. You're good. Jack, what do you got up next on the pub crawl?
So research has found wisdom teeth. I know you just thought they were in your mouth for nothing, but they contain stem cells for healing your heart, your brain, and your bones. And, I had 5 impacted in there and they took them all out. So I guess my brain, my bones, and heart are just done.
Got all mine. I'm living forever.
Look at you.
Baby. I don't know about that. I got other issues myself that are beyond my wisdom teeth that they can help. Oh, that's pretty cool. Good to know. All right. Unless they hurt, I was going to say don't take them out, but I'm also not a doctor, so don't take medical advice from me. I should probably avoid giving out medical advice on air. Next up on the pub crawl, I wanted to head over to the world of college football, where Oregon quarterback Dante Moore, the projected number 2 overall pick, has made the decision to return to the University of Oregon. Oregon also got a huge commitment from Dylan Raiola going from Nebraska.
Patrick Mahomes' cousin.
Yep, exactly. Feels like it, or tries to be at least. He is now the backup quarterback in Oregon instead of starting at Nebraska. Both these players are on huge NIL deals for the Ducks. This decision, for many people are speculating, is happening because he doesn't want to play for the New York Jets. Jack, do you think it was a good decision for Dante Moore to choose college over the NFL?
I mean, really quickly, yeah, if you don't want to go, like everyone's like, oh, he's turning down 50 or 60 guaranteed. I mean, do you remember when the Mannings cried wolf and said he wasn't going to even play? He'd go play in the CFL if he had to go get drafted by the Chargers. So I think in a way, this is a bit of a different viewpoint, but it's the same outcome. I want to play where I want to play, and I'm fine. Like Nike pays those guys really well at Oregon. He's going to make $4 to $8 million by himself at school.
100%. And I think At the same time, yes, he's going to make that much money playing at school. He's going to make that much money in the NFL too, and you're going to be playing on an NFL team, living your dream, and probably in the long run make more money than you would going back to school for one more year.
But would you rather play for a team that you can be good on and it can be a good trajectory for you, or do you want to go play for the Jets and just get sacked 8 times a game?
I'd rather guarantee I get to the NFL, if I'm being completely honest.
He's going to get to the NFL.
Not if he tears his ACL or his Achilles in the last game of the season and he becomes an undrafted. Did you watch Jordan Travis a couple of years ago? It's exactly what happened to him. He was a projected second or third round pick.
Good thing he's got that Oregon money then.
Yeah, breaks his leg and then falls completely out of the draft, especially with Florida State when they went through that whole kerfuffle of all the drama that happened in the playoffs with them as well. So, I mean, it can very quickly go from number 2 overall pick to a late 7th rounder, just like that. With
4th or 5th,
a bad season, like a bad season. It's killer. What DJ Ugolele, or any of these other players that have come out in the draft. Quinn Ewers is another great example of that. These are top guys that had good seasons that put themselves in the trajectory of a
unmissable, and then now you could miss
around a little too long, and they have bad seasons, and all of a sudden you're falling down the draft boards again. So it can happen. It can happen to anybody. Jack, last up here.
Okay, we'll do it really quick. Macclesfield. Remember how we're always talking about how the FA Cup in England is basically March Madness on steroids? Yep. So Macclesfield is a team that was bought by a guy who owns a small, their 6-tier team. Basically, you and me and Tommy and a bunch of the guys at the station who work other jobs on Sunday League play on a team that's basically like quadruple million A that, you guys stink. You're never getting into the tournament. They got in the tournament. They beat Crystal Palace, a premiership team that won the FA Cup last year. They ousted them. They play another premiership team this week. They're a bunch of farmers, barmen, firemen, cops. They're looking like they could be a bit of a tough out. And I think we need to watch it. They were bought by their owner when he was drunk in Ibiza. He's an IT guy from the area, and he thought it was really cheap and it would be funny to own a team. But now he's got them winning against premier teams. So I'm rooting for the 6-tier team in the FA Cup.
We still need our Flamengo jerseys. We haven't gotten those yet.
Hey,
we
need to hit up that Brazilian fan. And Macclesfield. You need a Macclesfield
jersey. Now we need a Macclesfield jersey. These are 2 of my teams now. I'm cheering for them the whole way. I don't really care what happens. If they lose, that's fine, whatever. But I'm rooting for the little guys. I love the little guys. Those are always my favorite. And I'm still rooting for West Ham. I don't really know what's happening.
No, they might stay up in the Premiership this year. They're close.
Let's go. I knew it, guys. Don't listen. This has been the Wisconsin Sports Weekend Pub Crawl. Thank you so much for joining us, because with the end of the pub crawl means it is the end of the show here for Jack and I. Again, thank you all so much for joining us today. Thank you to Payne Blazevich for joining us at the top of this hour. Brian and McGuanago, all these, Alan Cedarberg, keep calling in. Everybody else, start calling in too. We want to talk with you guys. We need to hear from Q today. Q's probably doing laundry. He's talking about doing chores all the time. But again, thank you so much for joining us. I'm Charlie Houston. That's Jack Pembroke. We are Wisconsin Sports Weekend, live from Wisconsin Sports Radio Network Studios, powered by the Potawatomi Sportsbook and presented by Apollo Cafe, Milwaukee's Greek superstar of flavor, right there on historic Brady Street. Jack, you no longer have to wear your Bears jersey if you don't want to. I'll free you.
I've mentally blocked out what I'm wearing, so
I'm going to keep this picture in my mind forever. And when the Bears continue to own the Packers moving forward here,
I'll have to wear it. You've accomplished what many of my friends wish they could have done. So
exactly. Have a great rest of your weekend, folks. This has been Wisconsin Sports Weekend. Have a good one.